So I watched the final words of Itauma and Filip Hrgović, and here is the boxing philosophy perspective. So the first idea is that the hard job is done, and now it's about the fight. And this is Itauma's answer on fight week. It isn't nerves, it isn't boredom, because the camp is over and the real work was months ago. So what has happened in that camp? Is Itauma firing on all cylinders, or has there been some struggles? And if there were struggles, what are those struggles? By his own admission, the investment has already been made. But has he made the right investments? Will Itauma focus on speed, power, and foot movement, or will he come in heavy and try and dominate the center of the ring? How will he deal with the Hrgovic jab? How will he deal with the Hrgovic backhand? And how will he deal with the Hrgovic puzzle? And it's important to remember that the fight reveals the result, but the camp usually determines what version of the fighter arrives. And then the next idea, and again it's a quote, is that I think physically I've been better, but mentally I've also been better. But I think it's enough to beat Hrgovic. And in this sense, Itauma, he won't lie and say he's in the career best shape. To me, from an outsider looking in, the concession of not being at his best is not good. But if we flip the coin, this may be reverse psychology. Itauma, from my perspective, should be in the career best shape. This is, at least on paper, his toughest fight. He should be physically, mentally, strategically, and spiritually at his best. This could and probably will give Filip Hrgović some confidence. Also, it's important to remember that I assume Itauma is frustrated at Filip Hrgovic's mind games and is therefore reciprocating the sentiment. It's important to remember, against your toughest opponent, being good enough, that's a dangerous philosophy, unless good enough is still exceptional. And the next idea is that the world title didn't change a thing. As Itauma stated, I was as eager to beat Hrgovic before it became a world title. There's just a little bit more at stake now. Itauma, he has big pressure on his shoulders, huge pressure on his shoulders. Britain, for example, is expecting, and the world is watching, the boxing world is watching, and there's lots of criticism. Is the criticism valid? This, to me, is a psychological play from Itauma to remove the pressure by downplaying the title. The aim is to beat Hrgovic, and that perspective simplifies the goal. Hrgovic is also carrying pressure. He's also carrying pressure, but he is the underdog. And he is probably not carrying the same burden as Itauma. I say probably because we all carry burdens differently as individuals. But it's important to recognize that pressure becomes easier to carry when you reduce a historic occasion to one simple task. Beat the man in front of you. Now, before I move on to the next idea, I want to make a quick announcement, and I want you to check out my free chapter. So go to the pinned comment, click the link, and you can get the free chapter sent straight to your email. And if you don't receive it, make sure you check your spam or junk folder. So let's move on to the next idea. So he stated that Itauma, he stated that he saw posters of himself in Chatham, and he said, there's more. Walking down the streets that he grew up on, staring at his own face, and his first instinct is that he's still striving. What this reveals to me is that Itauma, he has high expectations of himself. He understands that the ceiling is very high. Why is the ceiling high? Because the talent appears to be undeniable. You could make an argument that he has a Lennox Lewis level of talent. However, we have to caveat that by stating that that does not mean he will have a Lennox Lewis career. The dedication needs to match the expectation. Figuratively speaking, you could make an argument that to be an elite chess player, you need to have elite preparation. And similarly, to be an elite boxer, you need elite preparation. And in this sense, the door of greatness can be open, but Moses Itauma needs the right key. And there is pressure. There is lots of pressure, and there is lots of expectation. And it's important to remember that talent, it can open the door to greatness. But, and there's a huge but, preparation and discipline are the keys that keep it open. And then the next idea is that London is home. It's his first fight here in a year and a half. 8 years ago, he fought at the O2, and now he's back. A world title 20 minutes from where he grew up. Is fighting in front of your fans or in front of home the advantage or the heaviest pressure in the sport? I think there's pressure on many sides. There's pressure on Hrgovic and pressure on Moses Itauma, but there's different types of pressure. Itauma will have the spirit of the British crowd, and he'll have that British crowd and his elite talent and preparation. Filip Hrgović will bring talent, preparation, and a strong form of resistance. Filip Hrgović clearly wants to be Croatia's first heavyweight champion. The evidence, if we look at the evidence, it suggests that he will come to fight. He will come to win. And this could be a very tough assignment for Moses Itauma. And in this sense, home support, it can give you energy, but expectation can make the same crowd feel very, very heavy. And then the next idea is that Moses Itauma states, I'm aware of what he is. I don't think he's aware of what I am. And I think that's the coldest line in the whole interview. Quiet, certain, and final. Why? Why is quiet confidence more terrifying than any trash talk? I think, from an outsider looking in, I think Hrgovic knows Moses Itauma is very talented, but I think he is using intentional minimization. I don't think he knows how strong Moses Itauma's spirit is. This assumes that Moses Itauma is strong psychologically. Hrgovic may be relying on the unproven fact that Moses Itauma will crumble under pressure. But is that premise true? Because there are two main beliefs here. Two main beliefs. The first belief is that Hrgovic can bring the pressure, and the second belief is that Moses Itauma will crumble under it. But what happens? What happens if Moses Itauma thrives under pressure? And what happens if Hrgovic can't take the pressure from Moses Itauma? In a sense, pressure does not reveal weakness alone. Sometimes it reveals that the person being tested is stronger than expected. And then the next idea is from Hrgovic's perspective. He said that he's a kid. I'll throw him around the ring. And I feel like when Hrgovic is saying this, I feel like this is like, clearly marketing. I feel that he understands that, in big fights require marketing. And I think Filip Hrgovic has been quite committed to building this fight. However, he may have some belief in those statements. Now, to my understanding, Abel Sanchez provides punishing camps, extremely punishing camps. And based on that premise, if that premise is true, Filip Hrgovic will enter the ring and he will be ready to go to dark places. I guess in the sense of experience, Filip Hrgovic will have convinced himself, and quite logically, that he is the more experienced operator, and therefore his experience will be a significant factor in the fight. And of course, it's important to remember that words can sell a fight, but preparations determine whether those words have substance behind them. And then the next idea is that Itauma reads the trash talk. He reads the trash talk as a confession. If you're trying to get under my skin, he states, that means you might not be confident in your own ability. and he states that he gets confidence from that. Is Hrgovic's mind games actually telling you that he's nervous? Hrgovic, I think he knows that Itauma is very talented. His psychological games of minimization is trying to plant some doubt. Hrgovic, let's be honest, he believes in himself. He's confident as a fighter, but I think he understands the assignment, and I think his team understand the assignment. As a boxer, and his team as well, they will watch the tapes, they will see the speed of foot, they will see the feints, they will see the accuracy, they will see the power, they will see the phases of attack. His team will study, and if you watch those tapes, you will see and know the danger. Abel Sanchez, Hrgovic's trainer, will understand the danger, but he will provide Hrgovic with a smart and probably a brutal strategy. And it's important to remember that mind games, they can create doubt, but they can also reveal how seriously you take the threat in front of you. And then the next idea is that the pressure is all on Itauma, and perhaps he knows it. Everybody expects him to win in his hometown for a world title at record-breaking time. Of course, there is pressure. There is pressure from his own expectations. There is pressure from the fans' expectations. There is pressure from the British media expectations, etc. In this sense, the world is watching, with Britain watching intensely. Itauma's shoulders, they have to be very, very strong. And let's face it, he will have to deal with the jab. He'll have to deal with the backhand. He'll have to deal with the left to the body. He'll have to deal with the 1, 2, 3, the left hook to the temple, the volume of punches, the footwork, the experience, the ring IQ, the feints, and the man confident of victory. And it's important to remember that greatness is not simply carrying expectation, it is still performing when expectation becomes weight. And the next idea is that this is, according to Hrgovic, his best camp in 5 or 6 years. The only camp where everything was right. Why does a 40-year-old saying he's never been sharper make a 20-year-old's task seem even harder? So let me get this right. So Moses, by his concession, has had better camps, but Hrgovic has had one of his best camps. This could be a very interesting situation based on that logic. Will Hrgovic provide a puzzle that Itauma has not seen before? And will Abel Sanchez bring a winning formula through correct strategy and a boxing environment? It's important to remember that a great opponent does more than threaten victory. He forces you to answer questions you never have been asked before. And I guess the final idea is that both men refused to predict round 1. And that's the real story. And the quote is, "We will see on Saturday night. Predictions, they create narratives, but the bell, that creates the evidence." Quick announcement, I have a free chapter from my boxing book. So click the link below to visit the landing page and get your free chapter. Remember to check your spam/junk folder if you don't receive it. Also, let me know what you think. Constructive feedback is always welcome.